How do you go about planning, creating, and publishing content the right way? Now, the first thing I want to express is that it starts with we're going to dive in to the first segment, the process on how to plan, create, publish content the right way. Okay. All right. So there's some bullet points here. There's some things that we need to consider, but the first thing I want to bring up is a sheet that I use for many different reasons. It's kind of a master sheet, but I'm going to bring it up here because it shows you the process of what I consider to be my video production process, okay? So here at the top is just kind of like a legend, right? The status of a video, the content type. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I think that there's 4 content pillars, and then I break down these other components, which I think are all part of Hub in a sense, right? Branding, backstory, and BTS. But the point is that there's 4 pillars: Hero, Hub, Help, Headline. I'm not going to go into that. I have an entire video series that's going to be coming out on that in the near future. All you need to do is hit the goddamn subscribe button and hit that notification bell. Bing, 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 bing. Maybe I need a notification bell here, but I'll play the magic sound instead in the meantime. Or maybe I can go with a whoosh. Oh no, that's a laugh track. The whoosh, yes. See, you can smack that bell. Now, the point is that at the top here, it says whether or not it's been published or not, the script, which I'll get into in a little bit, and how I go about scripting, the idea. Now, the idea is different than maybe the title. So, for example, we're going to break down the idea of should you niche, because that is a question to some degree that Kyler asked, right? And he wrote it in via text, so we're going to ask him about those details in a second. But it might be different than the headline, the thumbnail, any key takeaways, and then who's producing, song choice, budget, schedule, distribution, call to action, copy for the post, those kinds of things, okay? Now, I'm not going to go super, super deep into all of this. Like, we're going to try and do a lot of it. The main thing we're going to do here is come up with some of the core concepts. Now, the reason I'm showing you this is because I actually use this. I actually think about these videos. So, for example, approved for production, I would write, should you niche? And I know that that's a help video. I know it's obviously not published. And I'm going to make the script, right? I'm just going to quickly share the script. Viewer, editor, copy link. I'm going to put the script here. So that's where I can go with, and now it's in progress because it's literally, we're literally going to film it in like the next hour. So, should you niche? So that's the idea, right? So this is how I track these ideas. Now, normally I just write the ideas down, then eventually I get them into scripting, like some of these are in scripting, and then I start moving into production mode. And once it's produced, then it's here, and that's where it moves to distribution and other things. And that's what some of these other elements cover, right? These are other parts of my brand and creation. Now, look, this is not a perfect process, but the point is here that this is a process that I actually follow that allows me to kind of create this content. Now, what it shows you is that I also have an enormous amount of content that I have not yet published. And if it says partial, it means I've only published it on YouTube, but not necessarily on other other channels where I can promote the content, where I actually have a bigger following, which is like Facebook and Instagram and stuff. So, interesting. So let's dive in. How do you go about planning, creating, and publishing content the right way? Now, the first thing I want to express is that it starts with an idea, okay? Obviously, you have an idea that comes forward. Now, where does that idea come from? In this case, it came from Kyle, right? In this case, it came from like a question that he asked, which was a good question because it is a question that I get fairly often, and that's where I find I get the best ideas. And that idea kind of flows with your research on what's trending and relevant to your audience, right? It depends on what you want to create, what kind of content you want to create. Hero, Hub, Help, Headline. Point being, this is a help video that I'm going to be creating on the Should You Niche. So I'm going to talk about it from that perspective because I sourced this idea directly from Kyler, but I also sourced it in a sense from the concept that I've spoken to many people, many entrepreneurs, creatives, influencers, right, who ask me this question on a regular basis, particularly when it comes to different social media platforms, no matter whether it's video or photo. Now, in my case, I normally with an idea, want to start researching that idea, but I also might research what's trending if I'm looking for an idea. Like when I was planning for this podcast, I was like, let me go and see what's trending today on Monday, May 17th, right? And so here in the United States, one of the things that's trending is the Bitcoin price. Bill Gates, also trending. Ariana Grande, child tax credit, AMC stock. Okay, these are all topics that are trending right here and right now. So I use Google Trends as a way to figure out what might be trending online. But I also use YouTube trending. Why do I use YouTube trending? Well, it's because that's where my content I'm making is most relevant. So the type of people and the type of content people might be watching on YouTube and what's trending on YouTube in terms of general macro trends, like, are more people making gaming videos, or a lot of trends are around sports videos or highlights or memes or different things. There's also a lot of drama trending, okay? There's all kinds of different trends going on. But the point is, I've already made a video that explains exactly where to do this. The top 6 places to discover trending topics for making viral videos spread. Now, I use this. I actually check these things. I actually go through the process of seeing whether or not there's a trending topic that I want to discuss on the podcast when I'm preparing for the podcast. And I try and do that within the last 48 hours of the podcast, but also within the last hour or two right before I'm going to record. And it's because I'm trying to make a blend between help videos and then trending topics. Now, today's podcast is all about help. Every segment is designed to help you, the end user, and every micro clip or every segment of this podcast will then go after the titles and pieces of helping you in that way. Does that make sense? So
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So what percentage are you making content that's trending that you search versus because with creatives and business people, a lot of times they believe that they need to I have to think and sit down of all the ideas.
Yes.
Do you do that process, or is it like an 80-20 rule?
I think so in this moment, I'm creating 3 types of content. I'm creating hub content because the long format video of this podcast and the long format audio is hub, meaning you have to already know me or my podcast to really care about watching something that long format. Instagram stories is hub. Facebook lives are hub. You have to already follow me to care, right? Specifically if I'm living me talking rather than living a UFC event or some reaction video, right? Then help videos are the ones that are most discoverable from a long-term search perspective, meaning they have the most long-term value and they help create the most brand. So help videos are probably the most valuable videos you can create when building brands specifically. And I'd like to say about 75% of the time I'd like to focus on help videos, but I want to bake in a headline video into almost every podcast or into every content because that's the easy way for me to gain attention or make a little clip that gains attention, that rises my algorithms, that gets the help videos and other videos to be seen more. Mm. And so in a sense, I'm trying to package one inside the other. And part of my process is literally stacking the content creation process, which follows a little bit of Gary Vee's mentality around making pillar content, then turning that into micro content and sharing that and so on and so forth, right? So we'll get into that another day because I know that was one of your questions. But I won't break that down fully only because I actually do share that process in a free mini course on how to create a successful video podcast, okay? It shows you the mentality that I have around it, and I have another mini course on the 4H content pillars of social media success also coming out. So I'm really trying to share literally all the best information I have, and all you need to do is go find those damn links in the description, which most of you won't do because you won't take the time to actually do the work. Most of you won't do it. Anyway, if you're watching this, maybe you're the type of person who does. Okay, that being said, I do research the topic, okay? So I came to the conclusion that I could talk about Bitcoin pricing. I can go off on the Bill Gates thing. There are some things. I actually have a video that went viral on another channel that talks about Bill Gates on my Valhalla YouTube channel. But I was like, I don't really want to talk about those topics. So let me talk about what's relevant to my audience, which is how to create content. Now, my audience is very niche, okay? And maybe this is, a precursor to my answer of should you niche. But the point is that I'm focusing on storytellers. I'm focusing on the type of people who want to tell stories and build brand as a niche as I move forward. I'm looking to do that in a way that speaks to that audience. And therefore, I'm picking an angle based on my niche, right? Now, what do I mean by an angle? So there's an idea that's coming up. I'm going to take that idea and then bring it to my niche. So, for example, if the topic was Bitcoin price, sure, I could talk about just the price of Bitcoin and the different things there. Or I could talk about how Elon Musk uses Twitter as a storyteller to actually impact the price of Bitcoin. So I can take a topic and break it down to my niche. Now, are you understanding what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so. It caught me off guard. I was like, oh, really? He does it? Like, I know he's big on Twitter, but
yes,
I didn't realize he actually did that to.
I don't think he's doing it on purpose, but I can talk about that component. I can talk about how his storytelling impacts the price of Bitcoin, and how, like, you could literally see his tweet and the price of Bitcoin skyrocket or flow down, and how he's an opinion leader, and how the stories and everyone who's writing stories about crypto are writing stories with Elon Musk as the headline, because they're jumping on the headline of Elon Musk tweeting. Like, do you get what I mean? Like, there's a perpetual cycle where right now Elon is this kind of is a market maker. He's an opinion leader in the crypto space, and for the journalist who's writing a piece to get clicks, he or she wants to write the topic with the Elon Musk headline in it. You get what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And so they're going to use, like, Tesla's going to sell Bitcoin or nah. And then they're using that as leverage to get people to click on the link to read the article to then get the promotion next year or whatever it is, right? Like, that's part of the game of storytelling online. So this is what I mean by the angle. The angle is like bringing what you do best, right? What it is that your niche is about. Maybe you have a niche in sales. Maybe you have a niche in videography. Maybe you have a niche in graphic design. Maybe you have a niche in gaming. I don't know. Whatever, sports, right? You take your niche and you find the trends within your niche, and then you relate them to your niche and to the angle at which you want to talk about. Now, another thing that I love to do is to plan the titles and thumbnail. Now, as I'm researching a topic, I'm trying to think, like, oh, do I have a good idea for, like, the plan of this of the title of this podcast? And so I gave a title, for example, for this podcast as a idea for now. Creating a YouTube video live on podcast. Should you niche ? BTS, right? That's kind of the title of the full-length podcast that I might go with here. Now, it's a working title. I'm going to refine this title later when Kyler and I enter more of the editing phase of it, meaning that happens right after we stop recording. But the point is that I'm planning that thought process, and then I'm planning elements of the thumbnail. Now, in my case, I've created a bunch of different thumbnails that can fit different niches. And if they're help videos, those thumbnails will tend to focus on the title that matches the wording on the text that matches the title, but not necessarily the same, has imagery that shows you what the topic is about or what the outcome of the topic is about for you. And then bake that imagery into the different components of what you're creating and doing, and how every full-length podcast has a very specific thumbnail, whereas every microclip or every kind of help video or headline video essentially has a very different thumbnail. And so I am planning the thumbnails even by just doing that kind of work. Now, another thing that I think makes sense is doing keyword research. So I'm going to get to that in a little bit when I did a little bit of research around the should you niche conversation, right? So I'm going to bring that up in a little bit, but doing keyword research specifically on the platform that you're going to go on makes sense. So for me, I'm making this content for YouTube. So that's where I'm going to go and do my keyword research. Look, I can also do it on Google or other things. There are ways of planning that content. I do have a YouTube expert that's coming on who's going to do that work for me, meaning not only am I going to come up with this keyword research, but I'm hiring him to get all the keywords that I can go for and then take all those keywords and put them in the descriptions, put them in the tags, put them in other places to help grow my content. That's something you didn't know I was doing. I just started.
I did not.
Yeah, I just started today. I just hired the guy today. Then the next thing I do is script the video, right? Even if it's just in bullet points. So for me, I don't like scripting a video. I do not have a teleprompter here. The reason why, and I can prove I don't have a teleprompter because there's not one here either. I'm actually just thinking about the topic and then flowing with it, knowing that my best content is when I flow. Knowing that the easiest way for me to create content is not by trying to script, but more so by actually focusing on the energy of what I'm trying to say and understanding the flow of where I want to go with what I am creating and with what I am doing. So there is one thing that I script a little bit more though, which is script your hook or intro. Now, in this podcast, I don't script the intro. We pick it later and we kind of put it in front of the podcast and then make the podcast begin. But in making a YouTube video, I'm definitely scripting the intro. I'm definitely thinking about the hook. I'm definitely making sure that the first 3 to 10 seconds, if not even 30 seconds, are incredibly engaging and let you know why you're here and why you're watching. Then the next thing I do is I plan my shoot, right? So what does that mean? It might mean that I need a location. It might mean that I need specific cameras. It might mean that I have like an idea of how to visually present the information, right? And not only from a technical perspective of like gear and angles and things, but also what makes it interesting. Like how can I deliver this in a way that is interesting and engaging, that keeps the cuts going, that keeps the content going through. Then obviously I film it, then I process and review it. What I mean by that is before I go into editing, sometimes I just like to watch the clips and see, hey, did we get everything we needed? Like, you know, whether we made a shot list or did whatever, like, did we actually receive everything that we needed? And that's, as a videographer, Kyler, like, you know that part of the process is not just like filming and then
the
running
video
the
production.
Yeah, exactly.
No, the story is everything. And, you know, there's this funny thing going out right now. It's like quality over quantity and that debate, right? And quality is the camera that you have, the cinematic look, and really the quality is around the story, because you've seen viral videos go viral and they're from a cell phone. I mean, there's countless examples from TikTok, but they're great at storytelling. So yeah, there's more than just the camera or the audio equipment. It's 100% the story.
Well, and that's why TikToks go viral. Like many people who are using TikTok, and one of the innovations of TikTok is that you can make these short clips, but cut them together just like you can now on Instagram Reels. But the point is that you can think about a storyline. Mm-hmm. And even if you're filming with your freaking iPhone, it doesn't matter, because now the storyline is good enough that it keeps people engaged, and it may even makes them laugh, or it informs them, or it lets them know something or learn something new. And that's the point, is that the process of filming is in and of itself the creative process, not only in the gear, but in the flow of the content, right?
I'm learning that more and more, especially working with you, is like how you structure everything, and that process makes you more creative.
Yes, and it removes the shittiest part of the creativity, which is the editing part, right? The next step is editing. If you plan and flow, you know where the edit is going to go. Mm-hmm. Kyler and I spoke about where we were going with this podcast before we hit record. So he knew I was going to talk about these topics. He knew we were going to go in this direction. He knows what the 3 micro clips are. He knows the direction of where we're going with. Now, he didn't know before he showed up today, because I only decided this today, right? As he got here. But the point is that we knew where we're going with it, and we plan elements of it, and we'll plan elements of it right after we're done recording in this process review and in the editing phase. And then in the editing phase, we have some back and forth possibly, right? Like I give feedback or whatever. For the most part, I'm not really editing a ton. I'm really trying to put him in the director's seat, and like my work is done by the time I've planned, shot, and edited shot it with him.
Yeah, then it's on me.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. And where we can get better, and where I can get better, is cutting out the fat and add layers of cuts to make it more dynamic. Now, he's adding a bunch of layers to that, right? By making Instagram Reels and doing different content like that, he's adding in an enormous amount of value with like more visuals and graphics. What I'm noticing, and this is something I want to get better at as we go, is like we need more B-roll of the space, more B-roll of me, more B-roll of other things, so we can integrate that into Reels more. And I just need to throw you more content, so that you can use that in Reels and in different formats. So that's one thing. And then, but also cutting out the fat. Like I rambled a lot in this, and maybe there's a point, not in the full podcast, but in the clips that we would remove some of these different components. Now, again, in the micro clips that we're doing right here, we probably won't. But in the final video, the YouTube video, we definitely will, because we're going after a specific topic and we're trying to gain traction on that topic. And we're assuming that most people who watch the video do not know me. So they don't care about my opinion. They don't know about my kind of style. What they want is information. What they want is help with what they want to do. And that's why help videos need to be very poignant in some ways. Now, look, there are help videos that are like, you know, you Google something or you YouTube something, and it's like 24 minutes to tell you that one thing that's like at time code 1710. You know what I mean? Like, okay, there are those people too. And we hate that, right? But the person who does a phenomenal job of teaching us something like that, I think Peter McKinnon. Right?
He's next level, honestly.
Well, somebody like Peter McKinnon makes help videos, and that's how he blows up on YouTube.
And just so entertaining, too. Like, you want to watch. If he made a 24-minute video and he was teaching one thing, he would keep you on the hook the entire time.
Well, and it's partially because you already know who he is.
True.
His first, I think one of his first ever YouTube videos goes viral, because he literally takes like 8 camera hacks, and he has a beautiful thumbnail with like a knife to the lens, which is like a big no-no, right? So it's like, it's a perfect thumbnail to invoke, like, why the fuck is there a knife next to the lens of a camera, and like all the things that go with that. Anyway, the last 2 steps are publish it and promote it. Now, obviously, I'm generalizing. There's a lot of things to do around publishing and promoting. First things first, when the publishing side of it, take all the keyword research that you did, all the work that you did in planning and thumbnail and all these things, and upload all of that into the YouTube video. The location it was shot, the date it was shot, the category it's shot, the tags that are, you know, that you're taking from other videos that have similar names, the title that you thought about, uploading the YouTube thumbnail and making sure that's all good. Writing a description that's very informative that people might actually read, but also contains the keywords and tag titles and systems and all those different things. And there's more and more and more that you can do about that. There's also a lot more you can do in terms of promoting your content. There are hacks and things that you can try. I have not yet tried them on this channel, but I have tried them in the past, and I will be deploying them over time on this channel. Hence why I hired some very good talent to help me get some stuff going. Our first goal is YouTube monetization, so we'll get there. Anyway, long story short, that's the process. Come up with an idea. You research that idea. You research if it's trending, different ways of going about it. You figure out an angle. So you take that idea and then you kind of niche it down, or you bring it to relevant to your niche. Plan the titles, plan the thumbnail, do some keyword research potentially. And those can, like, you can do the keyword research and then do the planning of titles and thumbnails. It depends on like what the topic is or what flow. So those are interchangeable in terms of order. Then you script the video, or at least do bullet points like me. You script the hook or the intro. Plan the shoot, think about what's interesting, think about how you're going to deliver the content visually, film it, process and review, make sure you have everything you needed, make sure you have all the shots or pulled together all the assets, and that could mean pulling together music or other things too, by the way, finding and sourcing. I'm actually going to write plan, review, and source in supporting assets.
That takes a long time.
It can take a long time, but again, it will save you time in the edit once you figure everything else out. Because it's either you're doing it there or you're doing it in another thing, right? So like you and I can have a conversation about like the pacing of the video for the should you niche video that we're going to film later by having an idea of the supporting assets. We're not going to take the time to find everything because I think that's too long, but at least we'll have the conversation about it. That's the point. Then you edit it. You cut out the fat and add layers to cut it and make it more dynamic. You publish it and put on all the right keywords and all the work that you did into it, and then you promote it. Promoting it looks like sharing it across social channels, letting people know, sharing it out to your email list, whatever it is that looks like, okay? So that's the flow. That's the flow of the process on how to plan, create, publish content the right way, okay? With a little less focus on the publish and promote side, which we'll get to on this channel later. Again, if you have not hit that notification button, Or if you have, sorry, hit the notification button. That's what I meant to do, right? That's what I meant to do. But that is just the sound of like what a notification button can look like. Come on, hit it.